Hey everybody, welcome to the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal, paving your way to fantasy glory, acting as your lead blocker to fantasy excellence and making all your football-related fantasies come true. I'm your host, Nat the Truth Jones. We're actually starting a couple minutes early. We got a few less games to cover because of all these buys, which has affected a lot of things. I know it affected my game drastically. And more importantly than anything else, we got an actual banger of a Sunday night game that I personally cannot wait for. And if certain things go my way, I could still somehow eke out a victory that maybe I don't deserve. I'm not holding my breath. I think the computer has me at about 20% right now, which I think is about accurate. And but I'm still looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the football game itself. Obviously, I'm talking about the Dolphins and the Eagles. It should be awesome. With me, as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself. Wolf, how you doing?
Hey, same to you. About 20% or so chances of winning. I need Jake Moody to outscore the 49ers defense by 6 points. Probably not going to happen, but hey, you know what? A special teams battle, Monday Night Football. Crazier things have happened, so we'll see. But yeah, a fun, interesting week and lots of interesting takeaways today. So I say we dive right in. That way we can ideally get out of here right ahead of kickoff. Thank you so much for those of you tuning in, whether you're catching the replay here with us live. Thumbs up always helps us out if you do enjoy what you're hearing. Let's get right to it, though, huh? Week 7 quarterback risers. All right,
let's get into it. Lamar Jackson completed 21 of 27 passes for 357 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did fumble the ball one time. He also added 9 carries for 36 yards and another score. Yardage-wise, that's peanuts for him, but the touchdown on the ground, in addition to everything else he did, pretty incredible. Great passing game for Lamar. Huge fantasy numbers, and just a game that did not really go the way that most people thought it was. The talk going into that game was Lions are like a top 5 team in the NFL. And I mean, they were down 35-0 like that.
The blink of an eye. Yeah. He just looks so good as a passer. This is probably the best. I mean, even during his MVP season, I feel like he just looks like a more NFL ready pocket passer, comfortable going through his reads, not bailing on plays before they develop. He looks phenomenal. He passes the eyeball test in every single measure and spreading the wealth too. We'll talk about some of his pass catchers. 6 targets for Flowers. 7 targets actually led the way for OBJ, but Flowers outproduced him 75 yards on 4 catches. The big producer, of course, was Andrews. Happy tight end day. We heard that about 3,000 times today. 6 targets, 4 catches, 63 yards, and 2 scores. A monster day for him. Another quarterback with a monster effort. Patrick Mahomes had 321 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first half. Ultimately, he finishes with 424, 4 scores. Just a monster day from probably going to be the best quarterback of all time other than Tom Brady at this point. So monster day for him. Continues to get it done with nobody at his disposal. Just a monster.
He's the best quarterback of all time. I don't know if he'll win 7. I don't know if he'll win 7 Super Bowls. I mean, the odds are against anybody on that, but he's the best quarterback I've ever seen. Josh Allen didn't even play a good game. The freaking Bills lost to the Patriots.
Yeah.
And I mean, basically the Patriots were leading wire to wire, and then the Bills finally took the lead at the end, and you're like, all right, well, I guess the Bills are going to win. And then they didn't. Josh Allen completed 27 of 45 for 265, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. He also had 17 rushing yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, it's like, he didn't play particularly well. They lost to a team that was essentially a walking joke at that point. Yeah, I mean, you just a really, really bad loss there. And he still put up pretty big fantasy numbers.
Still put up like 26 fantasy points despite being horrific. As a Pats fan, on the tank boat at this point, I wanted to have a higher draft pick. But honestly, this was really fun. Especially because we led the comeback drive, and it just looked great at the end there to upset the Bills like this. There's nothing more fun than playing spoiler for a little bit. So I'll take it. I'll drink this one in for a little bit. We don't get Pats wins very often this year. So an upset this, I'm feeling great about that. So fun to see. Giants, new life with Tyrod Taylor, Waller exploding. This is the offense I was expecting all year. We just needed Tyrod Taylor, apparently, to take the reins. 279 yards and 2 touchdowns for him, in addition to a strong rushing effort as well. I believe he had a touchdown on the ground, too.
He did.
Solid day for him, reviving Darren Waller in the process. 8 targets, 7 catches, 98 yards, and a score. Really, really impressive effort overall from the Giants. And you got to wonder, do they go back to Daniel Jones at this point? They have the lingering neck injury. I get that he's their franchise, all the money they put into him. At some point, they probably have to go back, but they have a built-in excuse. Oh, it's a neck. We got to take it really slow. I love what this offense looked like under Tyrod Taylor. I know it was the Commanders. It's an easy matchup, but this was what I was expecting this year. Really nice to see.
Waller looked like a real weapon.
He really did. Yeah,
I know last week he only had like 7 fantasy points, but I feel like this is like 3 weeks in a row he's been serviceable. And this week he was
40
like
or more yards in the last 3 straight. So, he's getting himself just steady, consistent, and especially today, big splash day. National Tight End Day, did you know?
I did. I heard
about 10,000 times today.
This was way more than a serviceable game from Wild. It was a dynamite game. That was awesome. Yeah. If Travis Kelce didn't exist, it probably would have been the best game any tight end had. And I'll just jump in real quick before we continue with the quarterbacks. My friend Johnny Goodtimes was playing against Kelce today, and I texted him. I guess Taylor Swift must have Travis Kelce must have broken up with Taylor Swift. Looks like you're his bitch now.
Yeah,
I was pretty proud of that text.
Great text. Yes, well done.
Anyway, Gardner Minshew, 8% owned. Speaking of guys kind of like Tyrod Taylor, we compared the two of them. I think last time we were on the air, 15 out of 23 for 305, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Obviously that's a very solid game. I want to make one comment about this Browns Colts game. All the talk was about Myles Garrett, and he was incredible. He was all over the place. He basically caused them to score a defensive touchdown. He blocked a field goal. He had strip sacks. He did everything. They're just sometimes a game is just won by one defensive player, just puts a team on his back. And it's the Browns gave up 38 points.
Yeah.
Yes, Myles Garrett had an amazing individual effort. It did not matter. The Browns did win 39-38. It was a crazy game. But it's I've never seen someone so lauded about a defensive spectacular performer when their team gives up almost 40 points.
To a backup quarterback.
Right.
Solid effort, though, there for Minshew. Most of them were broken plays, and hey, whatever. Fantasy points are fantasy points. Again, 4 touchdown day for the guy. If you lost Anthony Richardson, maybe just ride out his backup the rest of the year. The rest of the quarterbacks, not a whole ton. But Matt Jones, just again, solid comeback effort, 272 yards, going 25 of 30, really nice completion percentage, 2 touchdowns. Looking really solid. Certainly the best day he's had all season. There's really not a high bar to hit that, but a really nice effort here. You wonder, maybe is this reviving his Patriots allure? Maybe he'll last another season. I have no idea. But more days like this will certainly help him out, and that kind of brings us to our running backs at this point.
All right, let's hit it. Running backs. We talked about this Colts-Browns game. Let's talk about Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss a little bit. They split snaps evenly, 35 each, I believe.
Yes.
Taylor,
and Barry's 18 down the middle.
Talk about a running back by committee. It's a 2-man committee. But this time Taylor actually outdid Moss. 18 rushes for 75 and a touchdown. He also added 3 catches for 45, which is a solid fantasy game. Zach Moss rushed for exactly the same time, played exactly the same number of times, played exactly the same snaps. He went for 57 yards as opposed to Taylor's 75. He added 1 5-yard catch. So Taylor came into form a little bit. We saw some flashes from him today. Obviously, we know Moss is good too. We'll see how this shakes out moving forward.
Given that Taylor doubled him up nearly from yards from scrimmage perspective, when you add the receiving total,
the catches,
and he looked good as a pass catcher too. You got to imagine this will start to bend more so 60-40 than 70-30. There is a world where Taylor ultimately gets 75 to 80%. I don't know if we hit there, but given the money they're giving him, given how much better he's looking, he really looked like he had his legs under him. And this was a good defense that he was doing this against. The schedule starts to soften up a little bit after their bye as well coming up. So Taylor, I had him down pretty low in the rest of the season, big board, compared to the industry. This is one that's going to vault him back up. I just wanted to see him do it. Wanted to see him look better than Moss finally for a week. And boom, we got it this week.
After this, I'm not convinced that the Browns defense is actually good. I thought they were going in. I picked them up off waivers. I played them, and guess what? They still scored me 14 defensive points.
They did well. They got you the touchdown.
38 for God's sakes.
I know. It's weird defense to measure right now. Jahmyr Gibbs, though, solid effort here. First game, he had one game without Monty. He's about a 60% snap player. This time out, 87% of the snaps, 79% of the routes, 79% of the carries, 20% of the targets, and he did a whole lot of damage with those 20 total touches, 126 yards from scrimmage, 9 catches, a touchdown, 27.6 PPR fantasy points. Good to see this because we know the talent's always been there, and it's good to see them finally unleash him and let Gibbs show what he can do. I get when Montgomery's back, probably after that week 9 bye, it's going to be trickier, but I think he's earned himself a much bigger slice of the pie regardless. Going forward in any games Montgomery misses, now you can have that confidence Jameer Gibbs is an elite running back one anytime Monty's not on the field. Craig Reynolds doing nothing in his absence. 3 carries, 16 yards, 1 catch, 9 additional yards. But again, like 13% of the snaps he was out there. This was the Gibbs show, and Gibbs stepped up big time. Great to see from him.
It was the Gibbs show, and at the same time, you could really tell they missed Montgomery. Like it was like,
that physical presence. Yeah, it does set a tone.
If I heard myself saying that like preseason, I would have mocked myself. But like they definitely missed the guy. He's really important. Yeah. Let's talk about Rams running backs. Obviously, with Kyron Williams now on the IR, there's value holes. You got to fill those value holes. I actually picked Darrell Henderson up off waivers and did not play him. I wish I had. Darrell Henderson, he's only 24% rostered. I'm sure we're going to talk about him and the rest of the Rams running back core near the end of the show. 24% roster. We don't know the snap count yet, but I will say all but one of the carries went to either Darrell Henderson or Royce Freeman. 18 of them Henderson, 12 of them to Freeman. They both did okay. Henderson had 61 yards on those carries and a touchdown. He also had 1 catch for 5. Royce Freeman had 12 rushes for 66 yards, no catches. Looked like Henderson dominated the workload. I agree with that. What I saw would also confirm that. And like I said, he got in the end zone. He had a pretty good fantasy day.
Yeah, we'll get the final snaps later tonight, but I'm guessing it's at least 60-40 favoring Henderson, and he's definitely the preferred option moving forward, despite not really looking all that great. Still got it done on the stat.
Did you see them get hosed in that game on that?
Yeah,
spot?
That spot was horrible.
I couldn't believe it.
And then I mean, that's their fault as well, though, to not have the timeout to be able to challenge it. Like, yeah, they got screwed, but they also screwed themselves and shot themselves in the foot, mismanaging their time and plays and all that. Yep. Gus Edwards, 14 carries, 64 yards, but also a broken play where he got 80 yards on his 1 catch, barely missed getting a score on that as well, but a solid day with 144 yards and a touchdown, near dead even split with Justice Hill. So you'd think maybe the bigger day meant more work. 30 snaps for each of them, but the big thing was 14 carries to Gus, just 4 for Justice Hill. So even though they were on the field for a similar amount of time, it was definitely the Gus Edwards preferred in terms of the usage department. So love to see Gus Edwards getting those touches, rumbling like he can, where Justice Hill maybe going off into the distance here. We'll see. Keaton Mitchell also got a catch, but then had another hammy injury, and we've talked about him. He looked good on his 1 touch. It was an electrifying 9-yard catch where he was juking and showed his speed, but then hammy flashes up and just – it seems like a dream that's never going to happen at this point.
It's not.
Oh, I hate this guy. This guy freaking ruined my Sunday.
Oh, Deontay?
Yeah, just steamrolled me.
Hey, I had the pleasure of going against him as well.
Hey, welcome to the club.
And my buddy Johnny Goodtimes might be Travis Kelce's bitch, but I'm Deontay Foreman's bitch, or maybe you and I both are. I looked at him, in the matchup beforehand. I'm like, all right, well, this won't be a problem.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Nope.
19 touches, 121 yards from scrimmage. Seemed like every single time I turned my head towards the TV, he was marching into the end zone.
Yes.
He had over 30 fantasy points. Like I said, he scored 3 times. It was maddening to watch. He and Darrington Evans basically split the snap count. Evans went 14 for 48. He had 1 catch for 6 yards. Obviously, Foreman owned the day and owned both of us. And, I'm glad it's over.
I really wish Darrington. Yeah, I'm glad that punishment's over too, because he's a big boy. Like, he's just a scary one. Every time he flashed to the Bears game and he got the balls, here he comes again, just ready to pound his huge body into me. Can't wait. Steamroller, absolute steamroller. Impressive stuff there for him. And you got to imagine moving forward too. Even if and when Roschon comes back, this has to be the Foreman show until further notice. Herbert at least 2 more games on the IR as well. And still, I think Foreman's kind of stapled himself as the backfield lead this way.
Sure.
Moving forward. And just an impressive overall game too. Tyson Bagent, we didn't talk about quarterback risers, but nice to see him just kind of keep the whole offense afloat. Unlike Brian Hoyer on the other side of things there. So we'll talk about some of those fallers later.
Although I will say Devontae Adams had a touchdown just go right off his hands.
Yep. Yeah.
Not that would have mattered, but anyway.
Yeah. 21 carries, 77 yards for Saquon Barkley. Big thing was another 3 catches for 41 and a score on the day. So welcome back. Immediate RB1 territory. And again, this offense just looking so much better can only benefit key weapons like Saquon Barkley on a day like today. 25 and 29 opportunities from the backfield. That's pretty nice.
It's true. Bills running backs, James Cook had 16 touches, 3 of those were catches for 102 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown. Latavius Murray actually also rushed 4 times for 8 yards. Like I said, oldest running back in the league, and he had 2 catches for 20. So although they were pretty close to splitting snaps, James Cook was definitely the guy who did the damage today.
It's
Again,
so
shocking loss to New England.
This is what you get. This is why you lose games. Why do you have Latavius Murray on the field for 32 snaps? Why are you giving him, 7 touches in a game where James Cook is going electric all over the place, and they play near dead even? 37 snaps for Cook, 32 for Murray. This is why you lose games. This is when you're not giving your best players the rock. What did Latavius Murray do today that justified any type of snaps? Yes, I am a disgruntled James Cook owner, but yes, it's also so maddening. Latavius Murray has no juice. It's the new modern age Frank Gore where we're just sitting here. But at least Frank Gore was decent. Like, Latavius Murray does nothing when he's out there. I just don't get it. Moving forward, Browns running backs, both solid days. Jerome Ford had that huge beginning touchdown and didn't do a whole ton after that. But still, you got it. You got that 69-yard touchdown, 11 carries total, nice. 74 yards and a touchdown. So not doing much after that 69-yard score. In fact,
he rushed 10 times. He rushed 10 times for 5 yards other than that.
Yeah, not very good. He did add 2 catches for 20 yards as well. Unfortunately, got vultured a couple times by Kareem Hunt. 10 carries, 31 yards, 2 scores. He had the snap lead here. Jerome Ford, 32 of the 75, 20 going to Hunt, 25, or actually 22 rather, going to Pierre Strong. I think part of that was we got a little bit of an ankle injury for Jerome Ford that we're going to have to monitor moving forward. Could make Pierre Strong a pickup, but certainly Kareem Hunt will be an even stronger play if Ford is forced to miss some time. He did not come back to the game after he suffered that fourth quarter ankle injury. So keep that on your radar.
In Denver, Javonte Williams had 18 touches. Nice. Three of them were catches, 96 yards from scrimmage. Compare that with our buddy Jaleel McLaughlin. He had only 6 touches. He got 46 yards from scrimmage. So Javonte was definitely dominating the backfield. The Broncos defense looked surprisingly okay in this game. It was a bit of an odd one. And then Samaje Perine also mixed in 5 touches. 3 of those were catches. He got 41 yards from scrimmage.
I don't know that I can call these Pats running backs risers here, but
they both had lousy games.
It was just kind of 15 touches for Ramondre, 6 catches, which looked nice, 85 yards from scrimmage. But I only want to toss on there because I think his owners see that looks okay. Over half of those catches and yards came on the last drive. Again, clutch time. They went to him. It was important. Yep. But it all happened really in a 2-minute span. You got to be careful of that. You got to, if you can sell high, he's had 2 decent games in a row. It does not look pretty, especially Ezekiel Elliott, 11 carries, led the backfield in touches in that sense, 31 yards, touchdown as well. Definitely the clear goal line guy. So if you can get out from under Ramondre, I want to put a highlight. Yeah, he had an okay day, but ultimately definitely seems like a sell with Ezekiel Elliott also looking pretty decent.
Real quick ending on running backs. Steelers running backs, both Warren and Harris actually ended up just keeling over into the end zone. Najee had 68 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown. He managed that on 17 touches. Warren only had 7 touches. He had 31 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown. They actually have, pretty similar numbers given the workloads that they each got, but Najee definitely got the lion's share of the workloads. We don't have the snaps right now for that either. And the last thing to mention is Kenneth Walker. He's the only running back who logged a carry in that game, which is pretty impressive. He had 26 for 105, and then he also had 2 catches for 6 yards. So that rounds out running backs.
Indeed. Moving to wide receivers, Josh Downs. Ever since Minshew, whenever they play together, this guy seems to perform. We'll talk about more details when we get to the waiver wires, but 5 catches, 125 yards, and a score. Yet another big day, 59-yard touchdown. Broken play, but hey, we'll count him in fantasy. And as well with him, Pittman did catch a long touchdown, 75-yarder, also on a broken play, only 2 catches, over 80 yards and a score as well. So the final numbers were good for him, but Downs actually the more reliable and consistent option today.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, 19 targets.
19.
Get the hell out of here. 13 catches on those 19 targets for 102 yards. Unfortunately, the Lions got absolutely decimated in this game, but still, it still gets your attention when someone gets 19 targets and catches 13 of them. I remember Darren Waller when he played for the Raiders in week 1 year. He got 19 targets in week 1. I still remember it. I'm talking about it now. That's how big a deal it is to get 19 targets.
It's insane. It's like a running back getting 20 carries. Insane usage there. The next closest wide receiver, 3 targets for the Lions. Yes, we had Gibbs getting 10. We had Laporta getting 7, but no receivers even sniffing I'm on St. Brown's chalk snap this day.
Puka
Nacua, 12 targets, another big monster target hog day. 8 catches, 154 yards, and coming at the expense of Cooper Kupp, it seemed. 7 targets, 2 catches, 29 yards. Maybe the bust of the day was Cooper Kupp relative to expectations here. But Puka Nacua, some of those catches too. Toe tappers along the sidelines, contested grabs. He's a stud. If you don't believe this, I don't think there is anybody out there that doesn't believe it. But my God, he is going to continue to be a high-end wide receiver one. Great to see from Puka Nacua. Definitely a tough day for Kupp, but moving forward, you got to expect much better than this.
Oh, yeah. He's great, too.
It's Cooper Kupp.
Bucks wide receivers, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Godwin actually got more targets than Evans, 12-8. They each had 6 catches. Evans did a little more with them. Godwin got 66 yards on his 6 catches. Evans got 82 on his 6 catches, but he also scored. That was actually the only touchdown of the game, I think, for the Bucks, unless I'm mistaken. I could be wrong, but I think that's how I remember it. And that's it for the Bucks receivers.
Yeah, 12 targets, though, for Godwin, rather. Definitely a team high, season high for him as well. But as you noted, Evans doing a whole lot more with his work. Moving forward, Jacoby Myers yet again out targets and out produces Davante Adams. Is this the number 1 receiver here? Maybe. At this point, squeaky wheel Adams does come out the gate, get a bunch of targets. But ultimately, that was about all he did. Finishes his day with 11 targets, again, behind Jacoby Myers for another straight week. 7 catches, 57 yards, far less productive. But Myers, 50 yards and a touchdown on his 7 catches. So outproducing, outperforming Davante Adams, the squeaky wheel. Got a little bit of grease, but the grease wasn't great. And then Rashee Rice, I forgot to update this one, so I'll just jump on him, Truth. He ended up with 6 targets, 5 catches, 60 yards, and a score. Had most of his production in the first half, as a lot of these Chiefs weapons did. 4 catches, 48 yards, and a touchdown at halftime, but ultimately racking up 14.5 half PPR points. Really, really solid day for Rashee Rice. Over 50% roster, but definitely a guy. Go double check. If he's somehow still out in your league, I'm intrigued to see what the snap counts are, too, because it seemed like he was much more closer to a full-time player today than we've seen in past games. So good to see from Rashee Rice. He continues to ascend and continues to be the most productive guy here in that Chiefs wide receiver core.
I want to just reiterate, talking about those Raiders guys again. I said this earlier, I know, but if Davante doesn't drop that touchdown pass, they have essentially identical stats for the game.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I mean,
but hey, dropped it. That's what he
did. But I mean, it's not something he usually does. You know that.
I don't care that we're winning. I want to be about legacy, man. Fucking selfish asshole. Like, get out of here. That's what you get. That's karma. You drop that touchdown. That's what you get. That's what you get.
And he's generally had some of the best hands around, goal line, like in the history of the game.
Yeah.
All right. JSN stepped into the starting role. DK obviously missed the whole game today. JSN targeted 7 times, caught 4 of them, 63 yards and a score. And then Jake Bobo, who I love. If DK misses more time, he was targeted 5 times, caught 4 of them for 61 and a really nice touchdown from him. And obviously, surprisingly, the odd man out, Tyler Lockett, who was targeted 5 times, caught 4 of them for 38. He was the only guy that did not score a touchdown in that trio. But I could get behind Jake Bobo big time.
It's fun, man. He makes these plays. He was making them all preseason, all camp. Kid from Mass, Belmont Hill. Why not? Runs a 4.9 40. Everybody loves to crap on him, but all he does is make plays when he's out there. Can't imagine he'll have any type of relevance if and when DK comes back. But for now, if DK misses any time, maybe you can toss the Bobo stream out there, at least at the DFS punt. Steelers wide receivers in Deontay's return. How would it all shake out? Actually, really impressive for George Pickens, leading the way with his 8 catches, tied for the team lead with his 5, or 8 targets rather, tied for the team lead with 5 catches, and led the team with 107 yards. Not what I expected, but Deontay, still a solid day overall. 6 targets, 5 catches I wrote down 49 yards. I think he had more than that, though. I think he had 79 yards, if I'm not mistaken here, Deontay Johnson. So either way, solid day for both these guys. They can certainly coexist here for the Steelers, but surprising to see Pickens actually getting some of those higher volume, higher percentage type of looks that typically go to Deontay Johnson. It's good to see that Pickens can maintain that role even with Deontay back. Yeah, it was 79 yards. Sorry, I typed that in wrong. So it was 5 catches, 79 yards. So a solid day in his own right for Deontay Johnson. A good return, stayed healthy. What you like to see.
No, a strange thing, a Patriots wide receiver being relevant like 2 weeks in a row. 6 catches on 7 targets, 63 yards and a touchdown for Kendrick Bourne, who we'll be talking about on the waiver wire. He's only 26% owned. Just saying. Last week he had 10 catches on 11 targets for 89. Like I said, that's you can't completely ignore that, right?
No, not at all. Back-to-back good weeks. We'll talk about him again in waiver wires. But yeah, solid stuff here. And passing game that had its wings under it for the first time in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, the Pats will have a more fantasy relevant stretch here for the second half of the year. Cortland Sutton continues. Nobody loves the guy. Nobody ever really wants to start him. And he just keeps producing. 6 catches on his 6 targets, 76 yards, and a score. Judy was okay. 5 catches for 64 yards, but it continues to be the clear-cut number 1 receiver here is Sutton. Plus the rumors that Judy is likely to get moved at this trade deadline. Even more reason to be high on Cortland Sutton moving forward.
I started Sutton today, and I mean, he was pretty great. I'm actually surprised he's not getting peppered a little more because he's pulling in almost every ball that comes his way.
I don't get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. All right. I don't know if you've heard this, Wolf, but it's actually National Tight End Day today.
Oh, it is?
So we're gonna go into the tight ends. We got like 4 guys to talk about. We've actually already talked about Mark Andrews and Darren Waller earlier in the show. And I've teased that Travis Kelce was doing some damage to a buddy of mine. Yeah, in the first half, Kelce was targeted 9 times. He caught all of them for 143 yards and a score. Finished the day with a measly 12 receptions, 179 yards, and a touchdown. We talked in the preseason and like a year ago, about making him the overall number 1 pick. This is why.
These are the days.
This
This is wide receiver 1 on steroids at the worst position in fantasy football.
Right, in a position where it's rare to see anyone score 10 points.
Yeah, career high too, that 143 yards in a half for Kelce. And also, I believe, an NFL record for most yards ever by a tight end in a single half. So very impressive stuff here for Travis Kelce, as we've come to expect on National Tight End Day. Woo! But Mark Andrews, though, another solid fantasy day, 4 catches, 60 yards, and 2 scores. Love to see it from him, continuing to get it done. And only Kelce really a edge that can match Mark Andrews today.
Do you think there's anybody currently winning at life more than Travis Kelce?
No, I mean, I'm not a huge, obviously not a huge Taylor Swift fan, but you can't deny how successful she is. And, that's coming into a lot of money.
I'm not a huge Taylor Swift fan either, but yeah, he's looking pretty good right now.
And the amount of marketing deals they're getting, I mean, he's killing it in life. And unfortunately, because I'm not a Kelce fan myself, but
does Hills like Taylor Swift?
She loves Taylor Swift.
I'm obsessed with Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
my wife and daughter both love her. Went to the Eras movie and stuff. Yeah, so I'm around Taylor a lot. And if anything even remotely negative gets said about her, my wife will just be like, "You put some respect on her name." She will shut. I mean, I don't really have too much bad to say about her. I'm not a Swiftie, but I give her a thumbs up.
Yeah, I respect her for sure. I don't like her music really, but I respect what she's doing. It's impressive. Oh,
no doubt. Well, this is just like a football game where they talk about her a little bit and everyone gets pissed. Now we just gave her a minute of airtime. Darren Waller. we talked about Darren Waller before. He caught 7 of 8 targets, 98 yards, and a touchdown. It was a massive game for him. Hopefully, this is going to be the direction we're going with him moving forward.
Yeah, and the last riser on this list, Dalton Kincaid, 8 targets, hauls in all of them, 8 catches, 75 yards. Doesn't find the end zone, but just great to see how involved he was. Clearly putting Dawson Knox into the back seat today. Diggs as well did have 12 targets, led the way. So ultimately Kincaid was second on the team there, but led the team in his catches and yards, with Diggs going just 6 catches, 58 yards. But he did have that touchdown, that broken play, which might ruin my week. That ultimately could decide my matchup, unfortunately.
All right, let's keep rolling. We're actually into the fallers, and we'll start that off with Jared Goff. He had 53 pass attempts. We talked about him targeting Amon-Ra 19 times. But he only managed to turn those 53 pass attempts into 33 completions for 284 and an interception. They lost 38-6. He did not look good at all. That's all I have to say about him. He definitely goes in the fallers category today.
Yeah, as does Sam Howell, 249 yards, no scores, and a pick against the awful Giants. An underwhelming performance after he had multiple 17-plus yard, 17 fantasy points or more in all but one start. This was an ugly one on the defense he should have been good with. Only McLaurin really coming out of here as a winner, 9 targets, 6 catches, 90 yards. Everyone else sucked. Dotson, 8 targets, 5 catches, 43. His best game of the year. That goes to tell you what kind of season he's having. But Curtis Samuel, really disappointing. Also seeing 8 targets, 4 catches, just 25 yards. Brutal day all around, other than, again, Terry McLaurin doing okay things. But even then, wasn't that impressive for really anybody. Tough stuff.
Basically anything associated with the passing game for the Falcons failed today. And we're going to, our first thing to talk about in running backs is Bijan Robinson. I just have a huge question mark over my head right now. Like, what the hell's going on? Anyway, Desmond Ridder, 19 of 25 for 250. He did have a rushing touchdown. It's a pretty unimpressive stat line. Drake London, 6 catches for 54. Kyle Pitts, this is a total Kyle Pitts game right here. 3 catches for 47. I mean, that's it. Jonnu also had 3 catches for 27. Nothing looked right on the Falcons. And we can go right into running backs because Bijan Robinson is, of course, the first thing on the list. What are your thoughts here? What happened?
Yeah.
What's going on?
It came out after the game. He's dealing with an illness. He wasn't feeling well. More reports and details coming out saying, I have a headache that started Saturday night and did not diminish in the morning. I took medicine and everything said I could be as good as I could for the game. But coach said, just rest up. You're all right. We'll get you right for next week. But he still was getting in, and especially at the end of the game. I don't know what he got, like 1 carry in the final 45 seconds. And it's just like, at this point, what are we doing? So ultimately just 1 carry, 3 yards for Bijan Robinson, obviously murdering fantasy owners. No report of this ahead of time. No one really knows what's going. In the meantime, Algier, 21 carries, 59 yards, hideous. Did have 53 yards on 3 catches. That was a little bit better there. And then Patterson, finally a Cordarrelle Patterson sighting. 10 carries, 56 yards. It was just awful. And you got to hope, it was just an illness. And this was one to just kind of set, forget, and we move forward. But, man, that would have been nice to know ahead of time. Like, thanks, reporters. Anybody, just let us know. Freaking Arthur Smith, he hates fantasy owners. You could have made him a healthy scratch. You didn't. Let the guy get healthy. If he was really that sick that you couldn't use him.
Why are you going to why run one time for 3 yards late in the game? What are you doing? You're sick, just sit him out.
Just rest him. Yeah, exactly. So stupid, so annoying, brutal stuff.
Brian Robinson, it says here final stats are fine. 8 for 23 and a touchdown. I would say that's not fine. I mean, he scored, but I mean, that's a
saved the day with a touchdown, but it would have been so much worse.
Pretty garbage game. But he also, there were 7 attempts given to Chris Rodriguez. And then Antonio Gibson rushed 2 times for 7 yards. The Commanders' rushing attack was not an attack at all today. They combined for maybe 40 yards or less. And they scored 7 points against the Giants, who we know are capable of giving up quite a few points.
Exactly. And again, Chris Rodriguez now involved, almost matching Brian Robinson in carries. It's one thing with the 2-headed nightmare, and it's not a great 2-headed nightmare in the first place, but now a bad backfield's already becoming 3 mouths to split it between. And game flow is the one thing. Brian Robinson and wins is going to be good, but you can't get the right game flow against the Bears and now the Giants. When are you ever going to get the right game flow at this point? So, if you can somehow get out from under Brian Robinson, I love the player, love how hard he runs, but this is not an offense that he's going to typically find success in. Bailed you out today with a touchdown. If you can somehow use that to your advantage to move him, please do look at it. And Josh Jacobs, come on, the juiciest of possible matchups here. Gets his usual workload, 12 touches, inefficient, ugly. 1 catch as well, 41 total yards, no touchdowns. Teams have been smashing. In terms of schedule-adjusted fantasy points, the Bears have given up the most in the league, and Josh Jacobs can't even do anything with that. We've talked all season about how he's probably a buy low because he's getting some of the juiciest workload, the highest snap counts, the biggest receiving look. He's doing nothing with it. At this point, it's not the Josh Jacobs that we were used to last year that could blow things up. I don't know. I'm done with it. Josh Jacobs is going to be a big faller at this point. I have no interest.
How could he not be? Yeah. We got a couple WTFs to close out running backs, and I'll jump on both of them. If you want to add anything to either of them, feel free.
Austin Eckler I want to spin on, so that's all I have to add.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'll give you him. WTF up with Aaron Jones. He had 11 touches. That counts 3 catches for 57 yards from scrimmage. He's a guy that you had pegged to blow up because he's playing against the Broncos, and the Broncos are the most fun team to blow up on in the history of the world.
Yeah.
They gave up 17 points or something in the game, which that was kind of nuts.
Very
but the crazy thing is that AJ Dillon, the corpse of AJ Dillon, had 17 touches, which included 2 catches, and he had 95 yards from scrimmage. Yeah, so didn't see it coming that he wasn't going to blow up against the Broncos, and didn't see it coming that he was going to get out touched by 6 by AJ Dillon, and Dillon actually produced.
Yeah, really weird. Just an awful situation. I don't know if it's a hamstring thing, if it's a snap count because of the game, but Aaron Jones no longer the set and forget that we hoped he could be coming back from the bye week and a few weeks of rest. Awful. But Austin Eckler also a WTF. 14 carries for an inefficient 45 yards, 2 targets, 1 catch, a whopping 1 yard. What is happening? He's always been a 20% target share guy and 9 catches and 2 touchdowns and blowing up. Week 1, 24 points to begin the year. 2 other games so far, 8.2 and then 5.1. Josh Kelly, useless with Austin Eckler off the field, but just stealing all the touchdowns when Eckler's somehow playing. It makes no sense. I don't know what's happening, but this is not what you're expecting from your first-round pick, from your big auction bid, whatever it might have been. This is horrible. I still think I buy low because the playoff schedule is looking really good, and at some point you got to imagine they turn this around, but the usage, especially the lack of receiving usage, it has to concern you, and this is a trend with Kellen Moore. He didn't really throw to his backs much in the Cowboys offense. I'm worried. I am definitely worried about Eckler, but knowing how worried I feel, if I didn't have Eckler, I'd probably be trying to buy him right now too and capitalize on panic that people might have.
I don't know how I feel about it. I'm on the fence.
It's scary.
Sure. The Chargers just kind of give me bad vibes.
Yeah. We'll move on to wide receivers, guys. We got about 20 of you here. If you enjoy what you're hearing, please do hit that thumbs up. If you're new around here, please consider hitting the sub button. We do love having you guys here, and it helps us get out to more people. So thank you again so much. Let's keep going. We're almost done here.
Gabe Davis, another bad week. Last week he had 3 catches for 21. This week, 1 catch for 6, and that's on 5 targets. Getting tough to start the guy.
Yeah, he hadn't kind of entered that set and forget status for me at least, and he had been rewarding that faith, but no, not this time by any means. Similar to that, it was Amari Cooper, a guy that I thought was a set and forget, and certainly against a bad Colts secondary. What does he muster? 8 targets? Looks okay. 2 catches, 22 yards. Even outpaced by Eli Moore, we dumped all over on today's broadcast. A lot of questions came in, and we were just saying, why would you ever ask us about this guy? Well, he ended up leading the team with 4 catches, 59 yards. Njoku did have the team high in targets, 9 targets, 5 catches, 54 yards. Ultimately, nobody was all that useful outside of the running game here for the Browns off. For a team that put up ultimately, 38 points? A very, very pathetic day from a passing game overall.
Jameson Williams, who I actually wrote an article about earlier, he was targeted 6 times in this game. He caught none of them. In the fourth quarter, he actually had a ball hit him in the face mask, and then he dropped another ball in the end zone. So pretty bad game for Jameson Williams. Yeah,
it doesn't get much worse than that. You like to see the workload going up. You don't like to see the production of 0 next to it. Giants wide receivers, 279 yards for Tyrod Taylor. Everything's getting back on track. The receivers must look pretty good right now. Wan'Dale Robinson, 1 catch, 2 targets, 22 yards. Not to be outdone by Darius Slayton. 1 catch, 2 targets, 22 yards. The exact same start line, and no one wants any of that. Horrible day. Despite the offense getting back on track, there's still no receivers. Other than Jalen Hyatt, who we're going to talk about a little bit in the waiver wires, he's really the only guy that you might consider putting into your lineups at this point. Definitely cutting Wan'Dale where I have him. Slayton was a stream that ideally you didn't go to because that was bad.
Wrapping up wide receivers with the Packers. Christian Watson sucks. And I want to say, some things I'm right about, some things I'm wrong about. I was never on the Christian Watson train. And right now that looks awful smart. He was targeted 5 times, hit 3 catches for 27. This is against the Broncos, I want to remind you. He was outproduced by Musgrave, who was targeted 5 times, 4 catches for 30 yards, and Dobbs, who had targeted 5 times, had 2 catches, 30 yards, and a touchdown. And one he probably should have caught for another touchdown, bounced off him, and Reed, I think, caught it in the end zone. Maybe the pass was a little behind him, but anyway, Watson was the worst of them by far.
Yeah, and then tight end fall, there's just a few useless names, but Hunter Henry cut him. No reason to keep having him. He once had the slot role.
He was the tight end 1 for a while.
He was, and now Demario Douglas has officially taken over. He hasn't scored more than 4 fantasy points now, Hunter Henry, in 4 weeks in a row, 227, 2 catches, 27 yards, 3 targets. Useless. Cole Kmet, not even targeted with Tyson Badgett there. Can't trust him moving forward. And Dawson Knox, 3 targets compared to 8 for Kincaid, just 1 catch, 10 yards. Could have had a touchdown, but ultimately didn't show up in that sense.
So are we going to – did you just finish the tight ends?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I was distracted. They still haven't kicked off. We actually made pretty good progress. One thing I forgot about the game for tonight. I mean, I was just thinking about these are 2 great NFL teams. I totally forgot it's Jalen Hurts and Tua.
Yeah.
They a little bit of history there, huh?
Yeah, the Alabama boys. Let's go.
I mean, Tua replaced Hurts in the national championship game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, wow.
This is gonna be a fun one tonight. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Injuries. Well, the only ones we got featured here are both in the Browns-Colts game. Watson was evaluated for a concussion in the second quarter. He got lit up on a dropped interception late in the first quarter, and then he smashed his head into the turf. Looked like he was concussed, but I guess he wasn't.
They kept saying he's cleared, and that's That's what's weird with Watson is like he's been cleared by the medical staff, but not gone in like multiple times at this point. Now, I don't know if this is a Watson issue or if the team is leaking stuff because they don't like him and they want to be able to have ground to cut him. Or I have no idea what's going on there. It's dysfunctional. It doesn't feel good by any means. PJ Walker almost he actually did lead the comeback win, right? They ended up winning that.
They won 39-38.
So PJ Walker rallying the troops. And also on the Browns, Jerome Ford left with the ankle injury we talked about earlier. Had a strong day, and then in the fourth quarter, got banged up, did not return. Definitely seemed a little sketchy. That's all I could see from injuries. Truth, is there any from 4 o'clock or earlier that I'm overlooking? It was a light injury day, it seemed, which is thankful. Very nice.
I'm sure we probably missed something, but I can't think of any, honestly, that we did. You want to rapid fire through the waiver wire, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. In chat, let us know if we're missing any injuries.
I'm watching. I'm watching, and I'll look for some injury stuff too.
Yeah, see if there's any comments to pick up in there. But let's talk about the early Week 8 waiver wire, starting with Josh Downs, 36% rostered. I imagine, based on what happens the rest of the day, but I think he's going to be the highest type of guy to bid on, most fab type of guy that you're going to want here. 5 catches, 6 targets, 125 yards, and the score. He's now in games with Gardner Minshew as his primary quarterback. 7.7, then 13.7, then 15.7, 13.1, and then bam, 23.5 points. All very, very solid days compared to 6 and 5.4 days when he had Anthony Richardson. So this is a trend that's only gotten better and better. He has over a 25% target rate in the games he plays with Gardner Minshew compared to just 12.9% target rate with Anthony Richardson. So obviously with Richardson down for the year now, it is a good news for Josh Downs here. Other than him, I do think Darrell Henderson does warrant that top of the waiver wire priority list here. If you need a running back more, maybe you prioritize him even over Josh Downs, should they both be out there for you. Only 24% rostered here for Darrell Henderson. Definitely led the way there with 18 of the 31 carries there. Royce Freeman, though, as well, 29% rostered. He was presumed to be the starter today. It was Henderson who took the first snaps, got the most action here, had the catch in the receiving game as well. But both these guys were involved, as you mentioned earlier, all but 1 carry of the 30 total carries, 12 for Freeman, 18 for Henderson. So you've got to prioritize Henderson. And that's what I predicted. I wrote an article about it and it ended up coming true here. I said, everyone's going to scramble to get Henderson. Zach Evans was the talk of the day. And ultimately, he did nothing. I do want to just toss out Myles Gaskin because Henderson, even though he got all the work and Freeman got a decent amount himself, neither of them are impressive players. And Freeman, Henderson in particular, looked slow, looked like he was running in mud. I do like Gaskin as a player. He's nothing crazy special either, but that goes to show you how banged up this room is. I actually think he could be the best talent here. They talked about that he'll be elevated next week, probably. I could see him throwing a big wrench into this. So before you go and blow all your money to get Henderson, and especially if both of those guys, Freeman and Henderson, are gone, but you want to maybe take a little upside stab, Gaskin in much deeper leagues is out there in all but 1% of your leagues. So check for him. Other than them, and if you don't need the immediate plug and play, I really like Singletary. We talked about him on my waiver wire show last Tuesday. He was actually top 3 on my waiver wire list, and he is still just 14% rostered. My guess is because it's bye weeks, they were on bye, and you really just don't have a ton of bench space at this point. But I think a lot of people overlooking the fact that Singletary actually outsnapped Dameon Pierce last week, 52% of snaps compared to just 35% for Pierce. He had more routes, 50% of the routes for Singletary, 23% for Pierce. More rush yards, 58 for Singletary, just 34 for Dameon Pierce, and 4.8 yards per carry for Devin Singletary, 2.6 for Dameon Pierce. So in every single aspect, Devin Singletary outplayed, outsnapped, outtouched. He was the lead back, and the coach after said, Bobby Sloak, their offensive coordinator, mentioning Pierce just hasn't got it going, doesn't seem like the perfect fit for this outside wide zone game we're doing. Singletary, I don't know if it's the best fit for it either, but clearly performing better than him. And this is an offense that's exceeding expectation, top 10 in total points and overall yards per game. I think Singletary could end up emerging as the number 1 back in this offense. And at this point in the fantasy stage, he could be a nice running back too, actually, moving forward, if that ends up being the case. So definitely something to monitor moving forward. Pierce has just been so awful all year. So Singletary, very much intriguing, out there in a ton of leagues. So definitely something to watch. Mecole Hardman, 16% rostered. Just wanted to remind you guys, though, the upside this kid has from weeks 5 to 9 last year. 12 fantasy points, 13.2 fantasy points, 28 fantasy points, 19.9 points. Then he got hurt, Never heard from him the rest of the season. He got hurt the rest of the year there. But for that span, that 4-week span, he was the wide receiver 9 in fantasy, surrounded by like the Jamar Chases and A.J. Browns of the world. And then it was McCole Hardman at 9. What is he doing on a list of these guys? So he does have that type of upside. You look at this wide receiver core, sure, Rashee Rice, again, 58% roster. If he's out there, he's definitely the number 1 receiver you want on this team. But who else does he have to beat out at this point? He had a couple glimpses on a punt return today. Seemed explosive, seems happy to be back there. Mahomes certainly was raving about having him back here. So he hasn't done anything yet. That's why he's only 16% roster. But sooner or later, he's going to catch a bomb touchdown, and then everyone's going to be scrambling to get him. He does, again, has very few people to beat out to have a meaningful role in one of the best offenses in the NFL right now. Pat Mahomes, catch passes from him. That sounds pretty good. Jalen Hyatt, only 2% rostered, 75 yards, 2 catches. Boom, big play after big play, 42-yard reception, 33-yard reception there. And now in the last 2 games, he has 4 plays of 25 or more yards in the game. He had 2 catches of 25-plus yards just last week. He's in a list of like A.J. Brown and 3 other just huge names, Jamar Chase, to do that in a 2-week span. So ultimately, Jalen Hyatt having these glimpses of really, really solid play. He was a star in training camp this year. The really just brings a different element than any other receiver in terms of the bombs and all that good stuff. So Jalen Hyatt, at this point, leading the Giants in snaps this week. Only Waller had more targets than him this week. Yeah, I get Waller's the de facto number 1 receiver, but no other receiver has stepped up yet. And Jalen Hyatt's role continues to go up higher and higher and higher. By the week, he makes explosive play after explosive play. He's definitely the next man up, in my opinion, on this offense that seems like they might finally get their legs under him. Last couple names here that I wanted to mention, and I do want to just make sure to plug 2 over in the middle of this. I do a much more in-depth, in order, 10 to 1, top 10 guys on Tuesday, 7 p.m. I always have that waiver show. It's always a great time. Lots of great comments and interaction throughout it. So if you want a more in-depth show, set your calendar, 7 p.m. this Tuesday. We'll be happy to answer any questions you have during that as well. The other 2 names that I wanted to mention tonight, at least, though, Gardner Minshew, 8% rostered. As we talked about, 4 total touchdowns on the day. Ultimately, almost every single one of those came on broken plays. But hey, fantasy points are fantasy points. This offense moves at a very fast pace, and that's what creates these type of broken plays and these opportunities. Doing that against a good Browns defense certainly could have better days even more. So moving forward. And then last names on the Cardinals are Amari DiMercato and then Trey McBride. These are at the bottom barrel. This is at the end of the list, but for those leagues that you're talking about, no one's ever available. What you talk about? Well, here we go. Everybody dropped DiMercato after Keontae Ingram was the guy, and he played more snaps and saw more carries, and then he wasn't heard of. Didn't have a single touch. I don't even know if he was active today, honestly, Keontae Ingram. Not sure what happened there, but he did not touch the ball at all. And meanwhile, Amari DiMercato, 13 carries, 58 yards, 4 catches on 5 targets, 17 yards. Are those crazy stats? No, but only 1 attempt went to Damian Williams. No one else was used other than Josh Dobbs on mobile designed runs. I do know James Conner's due back in, I believe, 1 more week. So this is not a play you want to go and blow it all out for. But if you need a fill-in running back next week, it does seem like Amari DiMercato has taken the reins back over. But this came out of nowhere, so who knows? Next week they might just completely throw a new game plan at us. So this is not a play to spend much, if any, fab. It's more so if he's lingering there and you have a desperation plug-in spot next week, you can do worse than that. I did want to toss out Trey McBride, the number 1 tight end prospect just a few classes ago. Continues to have these nice little flashes. He's been outplaying Ertz now for 2 straight weeks. 5 targets, 4 catches, and 62 yards for McBride 2 weeks ago versus 5 targets, 2 catches, and 22 yards for Ertz. Clearly was a win for McBride there. And then this week, not a huge day, but 6 targets, second on the team there. 3 catches, 29 yards compared to just 19 yards on 3 catches for Zach Ertz. And it's more so not that I think it's just going to be like he'll can keep ascending over Ertz. It's more so I think Ertz is a big trade candidate. A veteran, savvy guy, win now team could look for Ertz, whereas it seems like McBride's right on this team that's trying to evaluate their youngsters. Is going to continue to get elevated. And I, again, think Ertz gets traded. And even if he doesn't, McBride has some talent, has some great after the catch ability. I'm intrigued to see what he continues to do moving forward.
Is McBride number 85?
Yes. It's like you think you have Zach Ertz catching the ball, and then it's the other guy.
No, I'm saying, did you see him hurdle that guy?
Yeah, he's a freak. Like he can do that type of stuff.
Yeah, well, that caught my eye. It was about the only thing in the Cardinals game that interested me. I was like,
I
wow.
saw that one hurdle and I opened up my Fab wallet and dumped it out. That's all I needed to see.
I was like, who's that guy? Right.
Who is that freak?
Right. Anyway, yeah, I'm into him.
Yes.
Anyway, that's it. We got through it all in 49 minutes. We're 5.5 minutes into the game. The Eagles are driving. Remember, we gave the advice to wait on Dallas Goedert if you had him to play him. He's already had 2 big catches on this drive. So we look smart.
Hey, there we go. Well, Wolfpack, thank you again so much for being here. I appreciate you here for the recap show. On your way out, that thumbs up button. If you're new here, please consider hitting that sub. Awesome to see a lot of the Wolfpack saying they won. Sorry, it sounds like Campanelli did not this week. It was a tough week, though. Tons of buys, tons of injuries. Tough week to navigate. I'm not looking great either myself. That makes you feel any better there, Campanelli. But cheers, guys. We'll be live next Tuesday. Waiver Wire Show, in-depth show. Would love to have you join us there. Until then, I hope you get what you need. Best of luck with getting whatever you need for that win the rest of this week. In a world of fantasy sheep, guys, be the wolf. Find the rest of season rankings updated with all of this on rotostreetjournal.com after tomorrow. See you guys later.
Later.